Hello, hello, hello. It is 5 o'clock. Good evening, good afternoon, all of you. I am just waiting for a few to come in. It is 5 o'clock. We are going to start in a few minutes. Hello, hello, hello. So, good evening, everyone. Last time we started our Living Single series. This is part two. And last time we had our workbooks and we were doing the aspects of defining what is it, the different parts of the workbook that we had, and what does it mean for me as a single person. So I just want to remind you before we get started today, as you are watching from either YouTube or our Empowered Facebook group, on our Empowered Facebook group is the free journal that we are using for tonight. So make sure you are a member of the group, and that way you'll be able to get our journal series workbook that we are using for tonight. And when you download it, it will have various parts of how, what we're working on, what we're working through, and how we can work through this aspect of living single. So I just wanted you to take a few minutes just to make sure that you have your journal. And when you get there, we are going to start with the second part. So many of you started speaking and had off the camera questions as far as some of the things that we spoke about last time here on the first part of Living Single series. And some of the things that we talked about was one, that the definition of being single is not to make sure you get married. It is the exploring, it is the investigation, and it is the aspect of learning to love you. Now, if marriage is a part of that, then great. Yeah, let's do it. Let's work on what those things look like and how can we move forward from there. But if a marriage is not the end all goal, and maybe it's later on in the future or what have you, then okay, for right now, let's just enjoy being single. So one of the questions that came up is, how can you enjoy being single? Well, one of the things is learning to love the skin that you're in. Some of us don't even know who we are. We don't know what we're like. And we're waiting for that opportunity or that person to tell us what we like or what we don't like. You can investigate on your own. That is why one of the reasons we encourage singles to travel, to go to far off lands, taste some different types of foods, read books, experience different people. And then, you'll get to learn the different things that you like. Okay. So the other aspect of that part of being single and enjoying the skin you are in is to make sure that you achieve the goals that you would like to achieve while you're single. Okay, so now that we have established some of the things that we have gone through in the past, and we're looking at our journaling series. Now, a couple of you are probably saying, Tosh, I had this week and I really didn't get into, some of the things of our journaling. But I want you to take a moment to just, go back over the journaling series workbook for yourself. Did you define who you are? Did you define, were you able to write down the things that you liked? Or do you even know what you like? Did you start talking about some of the things that, bad experiences or negative experiences that you had in the past? Did you sit down and think about what are some of the goals that you have in mind, and how are you investing in yourself? As we move forward to the next part of our Living Single series, one of the things that we want to look at is, what did we do with the information that we discovered? See, it's great to come to forums like these, and it's great to listen and hear other people's thought process and some of the experiences that they have gone through. But it's also important that the information that you get, whatever needs to be pertained to you, you need to make it practical in your own life to improve. That's how we get empowered. That's how we learn. That's how we understand ourselves. So what did you do with the information that you learned? Did you apply it? Did you use it for further investigation? Or was it just something else that you learned from that you really said, okay, I'll deal with the information later? See, sometimes we don't have a later. Sometimes, like the cliche says, tomorrow is not promised to you, which is correct. So you have to seize the moment and get a part and be a part of your learning experience, especially when it comes to you. So here's the part in the journal that we're talking about: learning and doing. So one of the things that I love in this aspect of my life is that I love journaling. I talk about it all the time, okay? I think it's the most amazing thing that lets you reflect and lets you understand the experiences that you have gone through. So this is why the workbook was set up in a journaling encouragement type of way, okay? So on this aspect today, we are talking about the things we are learning. So as singles, we can learn from many different aspects. One of the things that I encourage you to do is that when you are around people who are married, and especially if they've been married 30, 40, 50 years, is if they will allow you, ask the questions. Ask the questions like, what made you stay together? What is it that you liked about her? What did you like about him? Ask the questions, because it starts opening up your mindset to say, what was the secret ingredient? One person, when I asked this question to a married couple who had been married, I think about 60 years, they have been married. And the answer to their question was very, very, very interesting. So I said, what made you stay together for so long? What caused you to, what was the secret ingredient? And to me, it was interesting. They said, we know how to argue. And I was like, what? It was like, we know how to argue. We know that, if we have a disagreement, if we, don't see eye to eye on something, we have learned how to argue. And that has allowed us to be married for over 60 years. And I thought that was very interesting. And the wife went even further to say that that's not just a technique that you can just use in marriage. You can actually use it in any relationship or in your career. If you learn how to disagree with somebody, if you learn what that part looks like, you'll be able to retain that information further, that relationship further. And I was like, wow, that's so interesting. But the reason why I brought that up is because I've learned to start practicing that same thing inside of my career, my relationships, is learn how to argue and argue fair. Now, that takes two parties working on that and working on that situation. But in my singleness, I'm able to have the room to understand and to practice what that looks like. Communication is a big, big, big deal in any relationship that you have. And communication is very important for you to learn and retain that aspect down while you are single. So in your journaling, when you are able to download your workbook and use it along with this series, you should write down some of the things that you are learning about yourself. It gives you an aspect to write down, what are the things am I learning about me? What do I understand about the things that I like, or even some of my past experiences, and how am I applying that to me? So I want you to take that moment and take that time to really discover what it is, some of the undiscovered parts about you. Like one of the things I realized when I got up here to Andrews was I really want to go horseback riding. Now, it may be something that sounds very trivial and very little, but it's just an experience that I would like to have, you know? And those little things, having those moments are just, you know, they're exciting, they're new. And these are some of the things as you are a single person that you should try and discover. Just have moments by yourself. It doesn't always have to be with friends or family that is around, but learn to have moments for yourself. Okay, so now that we've talked about the learning aspect, we also need to talk about the doing aspect. If you have sat down and you have set goals for yourself, what are they? And what are you doing about them? Like some people want to say, well, I want to travel to a couple of states before I settle down and get married, or I want to be able to be at this career, you know, before, you know, I settle down, or even if marriage is in your purview. There's so many aspects to being single that you should practice and work on doing. Get some things out of the way. I was told by an older lady, there's some things that you can only do while you're single, because when you get married, there is a big responsibility. Or if your career takes on and your career focused, and that's where your life leads you, there's some things you cannot do at that time because of the responsibilities that you will have. So what are the things that you are actively doing to make sure, one, that you are exploring, two, that you are investigating, and three, that you are loving the skin that you are in? What are you doing about it? So this is your opportunity to write it down on your journaling experience in your book, to say, these are the things that I am doing for myself. Okay. One of the statements you'll see me repeat over and over again is about writing, about journaling. And one of the things that I wrote down was, research has found that writing can be very therapeutic. You can write about your thoughts and feelings or what is happening in your life. Write about specific topics. Here are some journal prompts to get you started. So in your workbook, one of the things that I talked about, like I talked about in the beginning, is one of the questions here. The couple I know who has the best relationship. So in this aspect of your journaling, you're going to write down that name of the couple. And one of the things I want you to take a step further is, why do you think that they have the best relationship? Is it something that you can learn from? Is it something that you're struggling with currently at this time? But why do they have the best relationship? Okay. All right. That's number one. And make sure you take some time to explore. And it's great if you have the opportunity to talk with this couple and, just see, what has made their relationship so awesome. Number two, the other thing that I want you to look at and explore in our Journaling for Single series is the best lesson that you learned about relationships. Now, crazy enough, sometimes that can come from the most interesting places. So I have a story for that. So one day I was traveling with my aunt singing. And we were at this church, and it was just one of those moments where you just don't feel good about yourself. You ever had those where it's just like, it's just a bad day, the dress didn't fit well, or the shoes didn't, you didn't pick, you went through 5 different shoes to tell. You ever had one of those days? Okay, so I was having one of those days then. And I really wasn't feeling good. I wasn't feeling comfortable. But, when you have to sing, when you have to minister it specifically, you kind of just remove yourself for a moment and take care of the opportunity and let the Holy Spirit do its work, right? So this was one of those moments. So I was there and we were preparing, and we had like this window of a break in between the time that we had to minister. So I decided, okay, I'm just going to walk the grounds a little bit, get some fresh air, walk around the church, look at, the different aspects of the church. And so I did. Here comes this little boy out of nowhere. And I literally mean, I'm like, I don't even know where he came from. Still wondering to this day where he came from. I know he was somebody's child. But anyway, he just came up to me, the cutest little boy ever. And he says, "You're so beautiful." And I was just like, oh, I needed that today. So one of the things that I learned is that in the future, I would like to have a relationship where compliments are given, compliments are taken, and it's just that give and take, arena with me and that person. And that was one of the best things that I learned, being able to just compliment somebody and feel good, not because you want something or not because you're in trouble for something, but just because, you ever had those moments where just because, and you're wondering, okay, what do you want? No, just because. And I learned that for me, that is something that I wanted to have in my future relationships. So learning about some of the lessons about what you would like to have can come from some of the most interesting places. But what I want you to do is make sure that you're writing it down in this journal, because remember, this is our investigation and discovery time, right? This is the time that we are enjoying to be with ourselves and loving the skin that we're in, because that's key. Okay, so here's another question that came up, or aspect that came up in the journaling, is the patterns I do not want to repeat. Now, remember last week when we looked back in our past and we looked at the broken spaces, traumatic experiences or experiences that we had from when we were younger, or, what our household environment was, or what, several of you who are watching have a community of church, and that's where you grew up in. And, that's where you learned about love, and that's where you learned about communication, and that's where you learned about relationships and being a leader, and the list goes on and on and on and on. What did you see, or, from any of the environments that you were surrounded by or that you were raised in, what did you see that you don't want to repeat in your own life? Now, it's hard not to repeat some things when we were raised in a certain household. That's why it's always encouraged to get counseling, because by default, sometimes we repeat the same cycle, yeah? But with time and with effort and being intentional, we can, and counseling, I can't say that more than enough, we cannot repeat the same mistakes. But do you know what they are? Because for some of us, we haven't defined what that is or what that looks like. What is it that we're not trying to do the same thing as what we saw, whether from a guardian, a parent, or a community that we were raised in? Make sure that you understand what these things are and that you're being intentional about not practicing it. Okay, so the other part of the journal, this is the part that I'm really getting excited about, is what is your definition of love? What does that mean? So often we always want to say, oh, I just want to be in love. I just want to be loved by this one. I just want to be loved. But do you know what that is? Now, let's go back even further. Do you love yourself? Because it is very important for you to love the skin that you are in, to just enjoy being you. I enjoy being Natasha. Do you enjoy being yourself? I heard my uncle when he was preaching. One of the things he said is, if you don't like yourself, why would somebody want to be with you if you don't like you? So what is it about you that they should like? And I was like, that's very interesting, because usually, we see that, oh, they may not like themselves, but somebody comes along and helps them to discover themselves. And that's all true. But at the basis, you should be able to love the skin that you're in. Be able to look in that mirror and say, girl, you put on that makeup just right? Yeah, or be excited about that outfit that you are putting on that you couldn't fit in 2 weeks ago, right? Because you've been working out. And it's the small things sometimes, that you get excited about. Or, girl, I just got my hair done, or I learned to do my hair myself. There's so many different aspects of you. Do you like the gifts that you're operating in? Do you like how you work today? Sometimes, when I'm going, especially with class and a heavy schedule and preaching and my own business, and, you just take a moment and say, I did that. That was good. I'm so proud of you, Natasha. Sometimes you have to learn to do what? Encourage yourself. So what are the things about you that you love doing? Remember, this is our time of being single and investigating, exploring, and learning to love yourself. So what is that part of you that you love? Okay. So one of the other things to look about as being single is answering this question. When I am old, what's the rest of that sentence look like for you? What is it that when you have, worked and you've retired, and what does life look like for you? Are you married? Do you have great grandchildren? Are you sitting by the beach? Are you wealthy? Are you single and just happy to be single and, being able to help out your friends and your community and, have a lot of nieces and nephews or godchildren all over the place that you just visit, and you're traveling the world? What does it look like when you get old? Write down that picture, because then sometimes we can work backwards, because if that's the end goal, now what do we need to do to get there? How do we need to appreciate and walk in the skin that we're in an amazing, healthy manner in order to get to that aspect? Okay, so while you're in this series, there are a couple of things that you're going to want to jot down. And the last page is just about notes, something that you've learned in this series. Now, I'm going to start answering a couple of questions that, like I said in the beginning, I got off camera. Yeah, a lot of people didn't want to write in the comments and ask the question. So I'm going to start answering some of those questions for the rest of this half an hour that we have with each other, because I believe in getting you guys out on time. So this is only a 1 hour series, so we will close at 6 o'clock. So one of the questions that I received And I'm trying to get my phone here so I can make sure that I have all the questions written down that I asked before. Um, you know, it was a lot of questions, and I hope I kept them down here when we were being asked about what are those things about living single. So, one of the questions that I had that was given to me was, I have dated a lot and been in a lot of relationships. Now, this is a female asking a question, okay? So, just that we understand, a female asking a question about being in a relationship with a male. And she says that currently she is not seeing anyone. And she doesn't understand why the males around her can't see her. Now, she also stated that some of the females that these males are dating are just subpar. What is wrong with me? That was the question. What I said to her was, there's nothing wrong with you. First of all, people, you're going to draw in what's on the inside of you. So if there's a down, if there's a desperation, if there's a whatever the case may be about you, do you know that people can actually pick that up? Males can actually pick that up. You know, we want to say that they are simple in manner and in thought, you know, when it comes to certain things, but they can also pick up certain personalities of us females. So one of the things that I encourage this young lady to do is, number one, you have to love the skin that you are in. And here's the thing, those females may be at subpar, but there's something inside of them that is drawing these men to you. You know, um, I've heard it a lot and I've seen this a lot. When you go about doing your own thing, minding your own business, making sure your career is on point, your outside looks good, you're taking care of your inside emotions, and then people just start coming and you start drawing people to you. It's the same manner. Take care of yourself and watch the type of males who are going to get attracted to you, ladies. Listen, you are beautiful, all right? You are amazing. And it's more than time that you dived into all that amazingness. And I mean, all of it, you know, from the ministry of shoes. Can I get an amen on that shoe ministry? Yes. Okay. To loving, you know, the skin that you're in. And, you know, some people have gone without makeup. Some people are exploring what makeup actually is. Some people are getting into exercise and what's the right products and their diet so their skin can naturally glow. There is so many amazing aspects, like, you know, what do you like to read? How far can you stretch your mind? How creative are you? What are the things that you like to produce, that you like to do? You know, what are your goals? There is so many amazing, I mean, I could go down the list of all the amazing things that are about you. So it's time for you to discover what's about you. And then as you move along and you're setting your pace and you're reaching your goals, whoever he is, I trust you. If they're not already observing you and watching from a distance to see who your friends are, how do you handle your business? How do you speak in public? How do you talk to people? How do you handle your finances? If they're not watching from afar already, they will. You just go about doing what you need to do for you. And trust me, they will come at the right opportune moment. Okay, so I have another question that I was asked, and you know, I'm reading these things off my phone. So this is a guy talking, and he says that, you know, it's hard to speak to females. A lot of times they take my kindness for thinking that I'm attracted to them or I'm trying to speak to them in some manner so that we can become a little closer. But really, I'm just talking. I'm just me. I'm just, wanting to have friendships, wanting to get to know people. I'm in a new environment. What is your suggestion? What I said to the young man is, I don't even know where to begin with that because there's too many aspects to answer that question. Number one, depending on who you're talking to, if they are insecure, any kind of niceness that you show or that you practice to this young lady may seem as, oh my God, he's interested in me. Any kind of niceness. If they are secure about themselves, they may be pushing further because they have a goal in mind. They want to get married. They want to have a relationship. They want a boyfriend. And then there's other reasons, like some people may be sexually attracted to you and just trying to get to you in that manner. There's a list of reasons why this is going on. What I would say is make sure in your friendliness that you're not flirting. So you have to watch your body language, watch your words, watch how you say things when you say things. And we're in COVID time, so the 6 feet rule should always apply and wear your mask. The other aspect of it is make sure you have defined boundaries for yourself and these females that you're talking to. Like, the times that you were speaking to them, how you were speaking to them. Are they breaking their schedules to speak with you? The list goes on and on and on and on about being able to answer that question. But what I would say is, sometimes just sit back and observe and take a minute, watching somebody, watching how they interact. And ladies, this goes for you too. Don't just, just because he said hi, oh, you're falling at his feet or whatever the case may be. Take your time. It's when it's time for you to get into that right relationship, trust me, everything will be aligned and God would be smiling on you and you will get that opportunity to have it. But in the meantime, take your time, sit back, watch and observe, because there's a lot of red flags. Oh my God. There's so many red flags that we can avoid if we just step back and watch and observe. Okay, so here's another question. So I have a young lady who says, the relationship has been going great. We're getting very close and, we've been in a relationship now for about a year or more. And I think we're talking about marriage at this time. And of course, I'm going to say, make sure you go to couples counseling is different from premarital counseling. I learned this. To learn about more communication aspects, how you interact with each other, how you are as individuals, how you're trying to come together as a couple, what was in your past that you learned about love, and how does that work with your current. It's so much different than just going to a counseling that is geared for getting you ready for marriage. It's dealing with you in your current state. Highly, highly, highly recommended. It's amazing. But one of the things I said is, have you ever seen her, because it was a male talking about a female, have you ever seen her angry? He said, no. I said, wait. Because the reason why I say that is you want to get to know the person from every aspect. And I still encourage the couples counseling and, going to seek wisdom in taking that step. But have you ever seen them angry? Have you ever gotten into a relationship with somebody and it's all peachy keen and wonderful and you're moving forward and it's just, the romance is there, the niceties are there. And yeah, you may have one or two disagreements, but you get through it. But you've never really seen the person angry. It is something to know, how do they control their anger? What happens? What makes them get to that point? What are their triggers? It's not that you're trying to trigger but you would want to investigate to see what is this person like? How can I help them come down? Can I even help? Should I even get involved? Like, what is this process like? Moving forward into getting into deeper waters in relationships, whether that means, okay, now we're girlfriend and boyfriend and we're not seeing other people, or now we're getting ready to get to that marriage stage, always means a stronger and tighter commitment. What or who are you committing to? Do you know them? And you're not going to 100% know everybody. And a lot of things are only going to take time. And with interaction, you'll find this out, especially if you're coming from two separate households and you come into the bonds of marriage. But, what is their family like? How do they react to family? What did they, make sure you know this person. Like, have the courageous conversations, would you please? What's your credit score? How do you deal with finances? Do you have any debt? If you're getting that deep into a relationship, there's some key things you should know. Like, how do you feel about children? What is your aspect about discipline? Just being the disciplinarian in when we have children, or what do you even want children? What are your career goals? Do you like to travel? There's some conversations that you should have while you're in your courtship, and especially if you're moving further on. Okay, now let's get back to the singles aspect, because I've had a lot of questions about dating. So one of the questions I got, and this one was from a male. Okay, here's the question. Okay, the question simply was, I'm at the point where I really don't want to date, but for some reason, the females that come around me don't seem to respect that manner. What should I do? So what I said to the male was, you've had to learn to set your boundaries. If you just want to be friends, say it up front. The problem is sometimes unknowingly or subconsciously, however you want to see that, we give off signals that indicate something different. So especially being a male in this situation, what you want to do is make sure that you have defined your boundaries and that you say it up front. Listen, being upfront, honest is better than waiting and then an explosion happens because of miscommunication by body language or by the things that you say and do, right? So one of the things that I want you to look at is, how are you interacting? What is your body language like? And are you being upfront from the beginning? Hey, this is cool and great. Let's just be friends. I'm not in the aspect of, wanting to be in a relationship right now. I have some career focus. This is what I'm doing for myself. Make sure that you are honest. I can't stress that enough. Say it up front. Don't wait. And, don't do the borderline, what you want to call romantic thing either, or borderline, this is my boo, this is my sweetheart, and then all of a sudden this is not where, that's not what you want to say it up front. You don't have to be mean. You don't have to be callous or cold about it. Just at the beginning, it's communication. Again, let's just establish a friendship. Every once in a while we hang out, hey, do some things that we like, whatever the case may be, but make sure that you are honest from the beginning. Okay. So I have a question from a young lady. I'm single, and at this time I'm working on my career and focused on being me. But for some reason, every time I go somewhere, I can't just be in my own space. I get approached all the time. Now, I was talking to this person face to face when this question came about, and this was a female. And just in our conversation while we're talking, she was right. She gets approached all the time. But her body language when she speaks to people is especially males, is very flirtatious and is very leading. I don't know if she realized it or acknowledged it. So I said to her, "Can I show you something?" And she said, "Yes." So we were in a familiar environment for me. And I went up to a male and I had a pre-conversation with him and said, "I need to show somebody something. Do you mind if I use you as, the person to show them with?" They were like, "Yeah." So I showed her what she looked like when she's talking to a male versus what she's talking to a female. And she said she never realized that her body language was giving off that attraction, so much so where people feel the need that she was that approachable or she was in that direction. And I worked with her to help her, tone down the flirtatious manner. And sometimes we don't realize it. It could be, nobody's pulled us aside to say anything, or it could just be bad habits that were developed over time. But it's just to be noticed, to be corrected. Some things we cannot see ourselves and we have to see from another person's point of view. So that young lady was able, now I get to understand the approach is less. I mean, she's absolutely beautiful. So there's no way of getting around that. But just now in the manner how she speaks to males and how she surrounds herself or in certain environments matters to her now. And now the approach is less and it's better. It's more respectable and not so much flirtatious in manner. That was an interesting story. I'm looking to hear what else happens afterwards. Okay. So the other question that I have from another viewer is simply this. Okay. So I have a group of friends and we've been all friends since college. Okay. A couple of us have gotten married, a couple of us are still single, but it seems to be that when we all get together, those of us who are single, the married ones pretty much are very negative too. Should I say anything to my friends? Communication is always very important and strongly suggest for anyone, any kind of friendship, relationship that you are in. I would suggest have a conversation to them because again, they may not remember or they may not even know that that is exactly what they're doing. You don't want to assume just right off the bat, not unless you really know the person's character yet. Like, yeah, they're doing this intentionally. Like, for sure. You want to investigate and find out and have a communication and not assume that they are doing it intentionally to hurt your feelings. Ask them and let them know, give them an example if they ask for it, or give them an example in when you're bringing it up to say, this is some ways you make us feel this way. If they're truly your friends, they'll open up the line for communication and you will get a better understanding afterwards. And maybe things will be done a little bit differently because of it, in respect to you being single and them being, married. So one of the things you want to do is make sure that you always practice you talk about things. Don't leave something on the table and then you go home and you're upset and you're mad and you don't know what to do. Make sure communication is essential, very, very essential. And practicing it more and more while you're single actually helps you for your career and future relationships that you will have. So I would suggest that you have an open discussion and say, this is the real deal. And this is how I feel about the matter. And make sure you have open communication. Coming shortly, I will be having next time that we are on next Sunday, we are going to have a viewpoint from males and females. And we're going to have a couple of people come on as guests to talk about the various aspects of being single. And then we can open up the forum for even more questions that you will have live as you are watching us with the various questions. But I want to remind you again that being single is investigating, exploring, and loving the skin that you're in. That's it. That's what it is for. Now, the other things that come along the way, whether it's, a career, a long-standing, excellent career, and you are staying single until, you're no longer on this earth, or if it's marriage that is in your purview, whatever it is, at the time you were single, just enjoy. Just explore, go traveling, and traveling doesn't necessarily have to mean I have to jump on a plane, even just discovering where you live. I remember that a couple of my friends and I realized that we were living in Florida for years and we've never been to the food festival. We've never done this. We've never gone to this place. And there's so many hidden places and hidden treasures in Florida that you don't necessarily have to go on a plane. You can just get in your car and just drive here or there and still have an amazing time and feel like you're so far away from home. So one of the things that I would encourage you to do is explore the city that you're in. If you're a foodie like me, like I like eating at different restaurants and, exploring different type of cultural foods, what you want to do is just go explore. We have technology now that has taken us farther than the traditional maps. Do you remember the maps your parents used to have when you had to drive somewhere? No, everything is electronic based. So now you can, if you are exploring like an all-inclusive resort in your area or in your state, you can find it really quickly. Or if you're looking for a new type of restaurant, there's all these commentary, TripAdvisor, Yelp, is on there, and there's so many other review places that you can go on. Facebook has reviews itself. The list goes on and on and on about the places that you can see to explore. Being single is not a negative thing. It should be and should always be a place for exploring. Now, the reasons why you're single may be different, and that may be traumatic depending on if it's a result of divorce or death. The list goes on. But for the most part, if you've never been married and you've never been in a relationship and you've never been this, and you are growing and into who you are and cultivating a career, whether academically or in the workplace market, you should just take the time to enjoy who you are, understand who you are, and explore. It is sometimes a difficult thing. I get a couple people who say that I don't know how to be by myself. Yeah, and I hear that a lot. But I'm going to encourage you to take baby steps, whether it's just 30 minutes for just you and alone time. There's a friend of mine who I ask every day who is no longer single at this moment. And I say, let's just say her name is Tracy. Tracy, how is Tracy doing today? Because sometimes we don't get asked the question of how we're actually doing because we're so busy and multitasking in the various roles that you are. But what I want to encourage you as a single person is to, if you can, once a day, how are you doing today? And you know me, I'm going to tell you to journal because journaling is a great experience. How are you doing today? How do you feel about your day? And at the end of the day, did you accomplish all the things that you wanted to accomplish in this manner? Listen. I have learned something that at the beginning, I would tell you at first for a long time, I did not feel comfortable in being single. Like, I'm in a profession where you're almost expected to be married, expected to have a family, expected to, make sure, because once you have a family, you're solid, you're stable. As a single person, we got question marks about you. But what I've learned is let your gifts speak for you. You work hard and work well, and the other things will come about. Are there moments of loneliness? Yes. Anybody who tells you no, they're not telling the whole truth, especially if they're single. There are moments where you say, yeah, not necessarily lonely for people, but lonely for that special one. Like you want to come home and you want to tell, oh, I got excited all about this, and the list goes on. And to just share in a moment with somebody who you have the same goals and same experiences with. Well, a lot of times, it's not there for us as single people. So where do we go? How do we do it? For me, I've learned to, you have those moments. I do every once in a while, but then I've learned to curve it into something else. I will go for a walk and I would dive into devotion, or I start listening to music and dive in, or I start reading a book. It depends on why I'm having this mood and where is it coming from and why do I feel this way. So what I do is just trying to move around from the moment, acknowledge that the moment is there, acknowledge my feelings, acknowledge my emotions. And if I have to, I will start writing it down and journaling it down about the moment. But at the same token, what I find myself doing is, okay, I'm going to go for a walk and I'm gonna get out of the space, because most of the times I'm, trying to accomplish a goal and trying to get there, and it's just like, you just have those moments. But I want you to be honest about the moment that you're having, and I want you to be able to journal it down. During this series of being single, we're going to approach a couple of other different topics and hear from the female perspective and hear from the male perspective. What I'd like you to do is think about some other questions that you may have. Now, as far as if you are part of the Empowered group, write your questions down. If you're on YouTube, please write your questions down underneath below so that we can answer the questions that you may have about being single. We are going to bring in the female perspective and we're going to bring in the male perspective with real life stories and real life experiences to see how we can help you, us, all navigate through this world of living single, healthy, empowered, and ready for whatever is to come. I just want to say thank you so much for spending this time with me. For those of you who are watching live, you are awesome. I hope I was able to help you today. And don't forget to download the workbook from the group. It is there. It is made for you. If you have questions, please put it in the group. I would love to hear from you about what questions you have and how can I help you feel more empowered as a single person. And don't forget to share. Share this with somebody else. Share this with another single person. Now, we have an episode that had aired prior to this, and it's on our page, so you can go ahead and look at them. We will have part 2 next week at 5 o'clock. Here. If 5 o'clock is not a good time because I was told 5 o'clock is better, then I was told 8 o'clock is better. So I didn't really know what time it is, but we are going to stick to this 5 o'clock time frame. Make sure you invite a friend because next week we have special guests who are coming on board to talk about what it means to be single. So I want to thank you for your time and thank you for coming today. And like I said, don't forget to join our Empowered Me group on Facebook, where you can get tools to help you have the right mindset to living a positively empowered life. I want to thank you for coming today and hope to see you soon. Bye.